Severed, the ultimate severance podcast.
Hello there, macro data refiners. Welcome back to Severed, the ultimate severance podcast. This is our 8th of 9 episodes this season, but I'm still going to warn you, spoilers everywhere. Shut it off now if you haven't watched. Thank goodness you refiners aren't the rebellious sort we're seeing lately on the Severed floor. Mark S. is in possession of both Rick and Hale's latest book and Doug Grainer's all-access keycard. He, along with his Severed floor co-conspirator and girlfriend Helly R., spent most of an afternoon in the unattended security office. Where is head of security Doug Grainer? Mark's outie knows. His innie would be horrified to find out. The duo stole the quick start instructions for the overtime protocol. You know, the wake 'em up outside procedure. It's what Milchick ran on Dylan. Now these rebellious Macrodats think they're going to run an OTP of their own. Will they? Could this spell the end of severance once word gets out? Could we maybe finally answer Herb's question? It's time to find out, refiners. Let's open the file called What's for Dinner? This episode was written by Chris Black, who is also an executive producer on Severance, and of course, also written by series creator Dan Erickson, along with the able assistance of staff writer Anna Oyang Munch. This episode is directed by Ben Stiller, his 5th of 6 for the season. It was first released by Apple TV Plus on April 1st, April Fool's Day of 2022. This episode begins outside in a place we've never been before. The fellow on the bench reading is Outie Irv. In the world of Severance, this is a park somewhere in Keir. In reality, he's sitting in Cornell Park across the street from what looks like a church, but actually isn't. It's really the Celebration Wedding Chapel on Wirt Street in Kingston, New York. It sits about 3 blocks from the Wirt Street Bridge. It's the blue bridge we saw Mark drive across and Petey stumble across. The Celebration Wedding Chapel was a church for more than 150 years, a beautiful church with authentic Tiffany glass windows. It still retains those windows along with the original church pipe organ, bronze steeple bell, and a heart inlaid in the steeple. The most information I could find about the Celebration Wedding Chapel was on a news and information website called Big Gay Hudson Valley. Turns out Irv might have more of a tie to this building than you think. Beginning in 2005, this venue underwent a 6-year restoration. On June 24th of 2011, it reopened as a wedding chapel. Why June 24th of 2011? Well, that was the day the New York legislature in Albany voted the Marriage Equality Act into law for the state of New York. It was the most populous state at the time to legalize gay marriage. The Celebration Wedding Chapel bills itself as a venue for all weddings where all couples are celebrated. Not sure why, but the Celebration Wedding Chapel is listed as temporarily closed at the time of this recording. A cut to close-up reveals Irv is reading The Emperor's Handbook by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. This is a new 2002 translation of a group of writings originally published as The Meditations. It's a compendium of personal philosophies and observations as recorded by Aurelius, who was the Roman emperor from AD 161 through AD 180. The Meditations were taken from writings that were more like a journal. Topics range from common sense observations about life to military strategy to tenets of Stoic ethical philosophy. The Meditations has offered guidance and inspiration since it was rediscovered and published in about the 10th century. Former President Bill Clinton has listed The Meditations as his favorite book. Former U.S. Secretary of Defense James Mattis carried a copy throughout his deployments. The Meditations covers a wide range of topics, but this quote did catch my eye. In your actions, don't procrastinate. In your conversations, don't confuse. In your thoughts, don't wander. In your soul, don't be passive or aggressive. In your life, don't be all about business. Marcus sounds like he might be the anti-Keir. At Irv's knee is an old dog. He whines a bit. Irv is wearing paint-spattered jeans. These appear to be the jeans of an artist with tiny splotches of color all over them. As they stand to leave, Irv addresses the dog. The two can be seen walking in front of a group of townhome apartments identified as Leonora Lake. This has to be another shout-out to Illumin CEO. Leonora Egan was the second female CEO who served just before James took over. We don't know Leonora's specific service dates or her birth and death dates, but we do know she both served young and died young. In reality, this is the Waterfront at the Strand Apartments in Kingston, New York. They're about an hour and 20 minutes north of the Village Gate townhomes where Mark's at-home scenes were shot. The waterfront at the Strand is on Rondeau Creek, right where it joins with the Hudson River. The website says this is Kingston's premier waterfront, and you're just steps away from some of the best retail and restaurants in the area. A 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 900-square-foot apartment at the waterfront at the Strand was going for $2,300 a month in January of 2023, and yes, they are pet-friendly. Inside Irv's apartment, we see him pouring a cup of coffee. Now, any hardcore coffee drinker would look at that pot and think, cool, fresh pot. This is the one you'd expect to run in the morning for the whole office, not at night for one guy. Irving drinks a lot of coffee. Just like with Mark's place, Irv lives his outie life in shadows. The interior of his apartment is dark. After living with suited-up, buttoned-down Irv for 7 episodes, it's kind of hard to get used to the very casual painter Irv. He has a seat at an easel. The cup of coffee is placed on a well-worn, paint-covered shelf. Irv considers the picture on the easel, and we get a reverse angle of it. This looks vaguely familiar. As we'll see later in this episode, Outie Irv has a fascination with the hallway and elevator that lead to what Cobel calls the testing floor. The real question is, how did Outie Irv develop this fascination? There's no way he could have seen this hallway or elevator as an outie. Could some of Irv's sleeping on the severed floor have allowed images to work their way from innie Irv into Irv's subconscious, then to Irv's outie self? Maybe, but why this image? Well, there's a theory. Something horrible must be associated with this image. We don't know what, but we'll see. Ms. Casey is not happy about walking this hallway. Irv's innie has experienced the horrors of the testing floor. The theory says Irv's outie felt the terror in a dream while seeing this image. He doesn't know what it means, but he feels compelled to paint this image as a way to deal with his terror. There's also a subsection of this theory which says Irv used art therapy to deal with PTSD from his military service. Since he's already confronted fears via art, it would make sense for him to try to treat this fear using the same kind of therapy. The treatment has turned into Irv obsessively painting this same image over and over. Irv is slugging down coffee as an outie because he doesn't want to go to sleep and have another dream about the testing floor. This is why Irv is so tired and dozing during the day. Irv pulls his current work from the easel and sets it with dozens of others, all showing the same image. He then places a fresh, clean piece of plywood on the easel. Time to paint another one. Irv squeezes thick blobs of black paint on his palette. The sound is one we already know. We hear the same splotch as what we heard during innie Irv's dream in the episode Grim Barbarity of Optics and Design. Irv piles up a huge blob of black, sips his coffee, and punches play on a well-worn cassette boombox. The music Irv's using for his violent inspiration is Ace of Spades by 80s thrash metal band Motorhead. It was the title of both a song and their 4th album, released in 1980. It would peak at number 4 on the UK Albums Chart, their most commercially successful album. opening in the black paint from the board's point of view. To get this shot, they had to restage the easel scene, only this time with Irv painting on glass so they could shoot through it. Why so much work to get to this image? Well, it just might look like the jagged opening of a skull we're peering through. The point of view of the severance chip echoed back at us once again. We get a couple of cuts to the freaky reverse, then Irv paints it over, and our vision goes to black. The song cuts off, and silence. Then we're into the theme. If Irv's soundtrack got your heart racing, refiners, take a moment to calm yourselves, have another cup of coffee, enjoy the theme, and I'll talk to you on the other side. Coming out of the credit sequence, we get elevator headshots of all four Macrodats. Mark is facing the camera as we usually see him. We're looking at Dylan from the side, so he's facing frame right. Irv is also being shot from the side. He's facing frame left, and Helly brings it back full circle by once again facing camera. As we cycle through all four again, we get the Zolly effect and see the warping of each Macrodat's head. It looks like the gang's all here. Cut to a close-up of a blue row of number keys on a workstation keyboard. Helly is working intently. Bin 4 is at 100%. Bin 5 is at 97%. Across the way, Mark is sitting at his desk. You think he's watching her intently until he stands and peers over the cubicle wall. He was sitting there looking at a divider. It's almost 11:30.
Think you'll have it by...
I'll get there.
The thunk of refined numbers continues. The pressure is too much for Mark. He stands and heads for the kitchenette, where Irv and Dylan are nervously waiting.
She's not going to make it, is she?
Mark tells them they should both be at their desks.
We've both been done a week. What is there to do?
This is interesting. It sounds like at the end of the quarter, the files run out. There is a finish point for a quarter's worth of files. Hitting quota has come down to Helly.
Is she going to make it? She's going to make it.
This is a pretty solid timeline marker for us as viewers. Today is the last day of the quarter. The day after Petey spent a night at Mark's place, Cobel told Mark he needed to make sure his department met quota. She said the end of quarter was 3 weeks away. This means Petey's funeral, the visit to Gans College, Helly's suicide attempt, Grainer's murder, the new baby, 2 melon bars, a visit to the baby goats, a visit to Dylan's closet, Bert's retirement, Selvig as lactation coach. All of it has happened in the last 3 weeks. Irv means well, but I don't think this is going to motivate Helly at all.
I just wonder if it might be helpful for us to stand behind her and perhaps chant her name.
Helly, Helly. No, I don't see that helping.
Just let her focus.
Irv and Dylan are like expectant fathers from a 60s sitcom waiting for news. There's a cut to a wall clock. It's 11:35. The slow tilt down reveals Milchick watching a monitor with Cobel nervously pacing behind him.
How's she doing?
Gonna be down to the wire.
The reverse cut to Milchick's monitor reveals something we've suspected. There are cameras in each of the monitors pointed right at the user. This explains how they knew Irv was dozing almost as Irv dozed. The camera in Helly's monitor is identified with an S prefix at the top, but there's also an NS number in the lower left corner. This kind of kills our whole severed versus non-severed theory about the camera labels. Harmony is keeping a positive outlook.
Let's prep for when she makes it.
Cobel starts to head back into her office. Milchick is still monitoring Helly's progress. Before Cobel goes through the door, she mentions wanting to schedule another wellness session, an end of the quarter session for Mark S. Milchick looks questioningly at this.
One last time.
You can tell Milchick thinks this is excessive.
Really?
I don't think Milchick qualifies for wellness sessions, so it's not like he's jealous, but he does seem to have a problem with this additional session for Mark. Cobel senses his frustration. She goes over to his desk and bends down, so they're face to face. She tells Seth she knows what a trying quarter it's been, how Grainer now sits with Keir.
And I imagine they're both very satisfied with you.
This seems like a compliment, but she follows it up with a really challenging stare. Cobel and Milchick hold eye contact for several seconds. She eventually breaks it off, stands, and heads into her office without another word. Seth lets out a shaky breath like he's been holding it and resumes watching Helly finish her file. We cut to a close-up of a hand twirling a rubber band ball. It's Mark still waiting. Cuts to Helly's screen as the numbers fly by, growing, undulating. Helly starts to circle a group of numbers but pauses.
Hey. Did you?
I think I did.
She may be done with the file. They met quota. There's a close-up as Helly puts the last batch of refined numbers in bin 03. It goes to 100%. When the bin closes, a box with 100% written in it flies onto the screen. What sounds like video game music, a 16-bit digital composition, begins to play. Mark jumps up from his seat and comes around the divider. Irv and Dylan, both hearing the music, are running out of the kitchenette toward Helly's workstation.
She do it? She did it?
They all gather around her monitor as the screen breaks up to reveal a cartoonish-looking mountain vista. We are rapidly flying over the mountains. A man in a long-tailed coat can be seen standing on an outcropping of rock up ahead. No surprise, it's Keir Egan. This scene looks a bit like the painting we saw of Keir inviting you to drink of his water. Keir seems to like to hang out on mountaintops. As the mountain flyover closes in on Keir, he turns to the camera. All four Macrodats are eagerly leaning in towards Helly's monitor. I think this is a standard message for a finished file, but it's so rarely seen, you watch it even if you've seen it before. The clock in the background says 11:40. Cutting back to the animation, a typed 100% is floating in front of the animated Keir. He points to it, and it breaks up, becoming a flock of birds that fly off into the clouds. A cut to Mark's face reveals almost giddiness and childlike wonder. The animation cuts to a close-up of Keir. He turns his head to the camera. The hair and beard are about as detailed as you're going to get with the limited pixel count. There are even chunky shadows on his blue coat. He turns his full body to the camera, revealing a tie and a deep, old-fashioned dress collar on his shirt. The animation speaks.
I knew you could do it, Helly R.
We cut to a reaction shot from Helly. He said her name. She's got a wide, almost goofy grin on her face. This is proof, no matter how much you hate your job, getting an attaboy from the boss is always a good thing, even if the boss is crudely animated and he's been dead for 80 years. Mark's nose is scrunched up in a childlike grin over her shoulder. This is Keir, and he's happy with you.
Even in your darkest moments, I could see you arriving here.
I don't think Irv is even breathing. Their reaction is what you'd get if Santa Claus were to speak directly to a 5-year-old. These reactions are coming even after the messed up OTC and Irv's anger about Bert's seemingly forced retirement.
In refining your macro data file, you have brought glory to this company and to me, Keir Egan.
There is a draw to Keir that transcends these petty squabbles. There's a cut in tight on the animated face of Keir.
I love you.
Helly looks touched. If the animation had been high-res enough, they'd have made him bite his lower lip.
But now I must away, for there are others who need me around the world.
You can't deny old Keir had quite the god complex.
Goodbye, Helly R. And thank you.
The animation cuts to a long shot showing Keir full length on the rock outcropping. He spreads his arms, steps off the edge of the cliff, and flies. I don't think Keir ever actually flew, but in his mind, you know he thought he could fly. Keir sails up into the clouds. He does a pass back by the camera before flying off into the distance. There is very much a Simpsons feel to this move. I know I've seen that same pass back by the camera with the coat fluttering out behind somewhere on The Simpsons.
I love you.
There's a great story associated with this animated Keir voiceover. You remember during In Perpetuity, I mentioned stage great Mark Geller was the voice and embodiment of Keir Egan anywhere you hear or see him in the series. It's not the case here. This animated Kier is not being voiced by Mark Geller. Why? Well, because this animation would have been created well after the real Kier's death. Let me try to explain. Ben Stiller and Dan Erickson went into quite a bit of detail about this rationale in an IndieWire interview. In the world of Severance, Mark Geller is the real Kier Egan. When we heard the statue recording in the Wing of Perpetuity, that was Mark doing Kier late in his life.
I have identified 4 components, which I call tempers, from which are derived every human soul.
So it was a clip of real Kier. This voice for the animation in the world of Severance would have to be an actor hired by Lumen to perform as Kier Egan. He's probably also called back in to cut a custom voiceover for the name every time a new refiner is hired.
I knew you could do it, Helly R.
So in the world of Severance, Lumen hired an actor to be Kier. Well, Ben figured the show would hire an actor to do this voice, but they needed a scratch track to work from if they had something the animators could get to work without waiting for talent to be hired. Who better than the director to know what he wants this voice to sound like? So Ben cut the scratch track. You innies might not know this, but Ben Stiller is also an actor. So Ben cut the track, and the animators created the sequence using the Stiller scratch track. When it came time to cut this piece into the final, Dan Erickson and, according to Ben, everybody said they should just keep Ben's read in there. That's how we wound up with director Ben Stiller doing this hilariously cheesy Kier Egan voice in what looks like an 80s-era computer animation.
But now I must away, for there are others who need me around the world.
Dan Erickson said he likes to justify Ben being the one who did the voice this way. Lumen needed to hire an actor. So in the world of Severance, the actor they hired to do the voiceover was Ben Stiller.
Goodbye, Helly R. And thank you.
Kier flies off into the clouds, and Helly sighs deeply.
Boom. That's quota. We did it.
If the color cues are holding true, this is interesting. All of the guys are in blue suits with light blue shirts. Blue, as mentioned by Andrew Baseman, is the color of unsevered areas. Helly is doing her homage to the Severance Chip with red hair over a green sweater over a blue skirt.
Good work.
My first time through, I thought it was weird to see Helly so excited about making quota. What does she care? She hates this place. Then I realized the plan relies on them making quota. Helly has to be a part of that. What a great way to get her motivated. They did it. They hit quota.
So it's on now.
Laughter transitions us into Cobel's office. Cobel may genuinely be tickled, but Mark is laughing purely out of a dedication to duty. Check the head of Kier on the credenza behind Cobel. The laughter continues until it becomes kind of awkward.
Oh, Mark, I don't know how you knew for the end of the quarter I wanted a heart attack.
Mark reminds her it may have been close, but they made it even with staffing changes.
Yes, and spending half of your time farting around the halls. Still, yes, you made it.
Cobel asks Mark who he wants to declare refiner of the quarter and send to the Waffle Party. Yes, refiners, end of the quarter is here, and that means it's time for the Waffle Party. Control yourselves. We'll get there.
I was thinking Dylan.
Well, sure. Wasn't everybody? Aside from the O&D coup, it's all he's talked about for the last 3 weeks. Cobel turns to Mark and says in a low, conspiratorial voice,
You know you can choose yourself or anyone but Dylan.
So why is Harmony wanting to take this away from Dylan? Maybe he's waffled too much? Mark says it's really his thing and he did work hard. Cobel says she'll take care of the arrangements. She then tells Mark she wants him to stop by for a wellness check. For some reason, she lies and claims she's doing this as an end of the quarter thing for all department heads.
Oh, the stress at Mr. Grainer. Retiring and everything.
Oh, retiring?
Shit.
He retired all right.
Of course.
Harmony seems to get serious and sincere.
Mark, all sarcasm aside.
She thanks Mark.
Lumen needed this.
Wow, the output of a 4-person department seems to be awfully important to this enormous multinational corporation. What are they doing down there? It's always hard to tell what's the truth and what's smoke when it comes to the severed floor, but whatever they finished does seem important to the company. Cut to Mark seated in one of the straight-backed couches in the wellness waiting area. Some tremendously chipper music is playing as Mark waits. This is a 1959 instrumental from Martin Denny called Quiet Village. It was actually written in 1951 by Les Baxter. The enter door opens and Ms. Casey emerges.
Mark?
Miss Casey.
Things have changed in the wellness room.
Where'd the tree go?
There's a box in the foreground. The room looks kind of stark.
Why is everything in boxes?
Ms. Casey tells him Lumen has a new wellness director. She claims she just found out.
Just a moment ago.
The wellness music begins. She says Mark is receiving this special augmented wellness session because of the successful quarter. Mark feels guilty.
I didn't think you'd get fired.
Ms. Casey continues with the prescribed session.
Your outie is kind.
Mark doesn't seem to care his outie brightens people's days just by smiling at them. He interrupts the list.
Hey, let me talk to somebody.
Ms. Casey almost looks emotional, but it's hard to tell. She finally decides to drop protocol.
I really liked being in the office with you all that day.
Meaning the day she was supposed to have been watching Helly, but Mark and Helly snuck out for some baby goats. To find baby goats.
I know I vexed you. I know I'm strange.
Using the word vexed is a little strange, but she's also the one who used the word knaves. Mark tells her she's not strange. She then reveals an amazing detail about herself.
My life has been 107 hours long. Most of that has been these half-hour sessions.
She said her most enjoyable time awake was the 8 hours she spent watching Helly at MDR. It's also the longest she's ever been awake at one stretch.
I suppose it's what you could call my good old days.
Mark says there must be something they can do.
Why do you care what happens to me?
She's not the only one asking that question. The quality of the music changes and we cut to Cobel watching Mark's session on her desk monitor. Is Mark really just that nice, or is there something about this wellness director which is touching memories that shouldn't be accessible to any Mark? Mark claims it's because they're people, not parts of people.
No one gets to just turn you off.
Ms. Casey's expression softens. She tells Mark he's nice. We see several inserts of Cobel reacting to this scene. Ms. Casey starts again on Mark's outie list.
Your outie can set up a tent in under 3 minutes.
Cobel shuts off the sound.
You know it's good, right? That they don't remember each other.
Milchick is sitting across from Cobel. He was also watching the wellness session.
It means the chips work.
Well, yeah, the chips work. What's he talking about? They've been severing people for a long time. Bert's been severed for 7 years we know of. Irv for at least 3, but most certainly more. On Irv's list, we see in the final episode, he has records of severance dates going back to 2007. I'm wondering if maybe this is the first time they've ever put a husband across from his wife. Maybe the chips work for regular business stuff, but they've never tested how well they work with personal or emotional memories. The chips work seems like an odd statement.
It's a win.
It is possible what we're seeing is the testing of some new type of chip, one that hasn't been proven already. Like most software and hardware, the severance chip has probably gone through several versions with additional features and options being added along the way. It feels like Cobel saw something in this Mark-Gemma exchange Milchick didn't. Maybe she didn't like Ms. Casey spilling all those details about her odd existence. Maybe it was the hint of tenderness in this exchange. Whatever it was, Cobel says with some finality,
Take her back, Tom. To the testing floor, please.
Testing floor would also indicate a new kind of chip being worked on. I'm not sure what the testing floor is all about, but the way she says it really gives me the creeps.
Testing floor.
Milchick is no procrastinator. He is up and out of Cobel's office immediately. Slow dissolve to a high-angle shot in the halls. Milchick comes around a distant corner, followed by Ms. Casey. Seth opens a door in a long expanse of wall. He steps to the side, and Ms. Casey begins a trek down a darkened hallway. It's somewhat reminiscent of the hall leading to the break room. There's a reverse angle from behind Milchick. A dotted line of fluorescent lights is centered along the ceiling. Ms. Casey stops and turns after she's about 20 feet into the hallway.
Do you know if I'm happy up there?
Of course. You do all sorts of wonderful things.
What up there is she talking about? Have they told Miss Casey she has some kind of outie existence? I don't see how she could, but she seems to believe she does. Seth isn't very believable in his answer. I doubt he's the new wellness director.
You do all sorts of wonderful things.
Miss Casey slowly turns. You can tell she's wanting to stave off this journey for as long as possible.
Could I just...
I'm sorry. I just have so much to do today. On you go.
This phrase, on you go, carries particular meaning on the severed floor. Grainer would say it any time he deposited someone at the door to the break room. When sending someone to an unpleasant destination, it is severed floor protocol to tell them, on you go, if they hesitate.
On you go.
Ms. Casey continues to the end of the hall. There's an elevator there. The door automatically opens. Ms. Casey gets in the car. There's the same elevator ding as what we hear on the severed elevator. When the door is closed, the red down arrow lights. Suddenly, we are looking at the image Outie Irv obsessively paints. This is Outie Irv's vision of his innie self, and he finds this image very disturbing. This is also the top of this elevator shaft. It goes down even further below ground than the 13 floors down we know we are on the severed floor. This elevator operates without a key card. It is a mystery. All we know for sure, it's access to the testing floor.
On you go.
The door is opened into MDR to reveal Mark entering the office. The other 3 Macrodats are gathered in the kitchenette waiting.
Mark, where were you?
He explains they gave him a wellness check. He tells Dylan he's all set for his waffle party. When Dylan hears wellness, he can only think one thing.
How's Miss Casey? I mean, I'm over her, but I still want to be friends.
Mark tells him they fired her. Everyone's surprised. Helly asks if there's something they can do, but Mark doesn't know. He's preoccupied with other things.
Is everyone sure they want to do this?
Before anyone can answer, there's a chipper voice from the main office.
Any Macrodats ready to party?
The levels of faked and forced enthusiasm in this next scene are off the charts. Milchick is trying to act like his arm still doesn't hurt from where Dylan bit him. Dylan is still pretending he doesn't remember his son, and that Milchick's the one who won't give up his name. Mark's worried about the mission and couldn't care less about whatever goofiness Milchick is delivering. Seth rolls a cart into the kitchenette.
Dylan G's Waffle Party will commence at close of day. In the meantime, I've ordered the pre-Waffle Party egg bar social for everyone.
He waves his hand across a cafeteria cart filled with deviled eggs like it's a new car on Let's Make a Deal. Just for the record, Dylan is lousy at faking enthusiasm.
Yes. Hater. Yeah.
This is accompanied by arm movements which look as forced as the words. Milchick says they deserve this, but before launching the egg party, he grabs something off the cart.
A very special gift for a very special Dylan.
It looks heavy. It's in one of those pseudo-elegant boxes that house things like paperweights and pen sets. Before we find out what's in the box, we need to talk a minute about Milchick's co-star, his mustache. Tremel Tillman has conducted several interviews where he's discussed the precision that had to go into Milchick's stash each and every shoot day. The hair and the mustache are a combo. He said the very specific look of Milchick was designed to give the viewer an instant glimpse into this character. Milchick is very precise, very controlled, very specific in those things he does and how he does them. In a Slash Film interview, Trammell credits makeup artist Anna Stackow and makeup department head Bernadette Mazur with crafting the mustache. It had to have a specific shape, and every hair must be in place. It could take anywhere from an hour to 90 minutes to get it right on shoot days. Trammell said prep time in the makeup chair would be on the high side if he hadn't been on camera in a few days. He said his hair grows quickly and the shape of the mustache would change during off days. Trammell said he was most concerned with close-ups. You can really see the attention to detail here as he delivers Dylan's box to him. The mustache perfectly caps Milchick's huge Cheshire grin. As he presents the box to the 3-time R of the Q, he even makes a joke about being bitten.
A man whose mind is as sharp as his incisors. Right, bud?
After he says, "Right, bud," watch Milchick's face. All the mirth drains right out of it. His eyes go cold behind his now very phony smile. His face almost becomes menacing. You can suddenly see all the anger of a man who was attacked and chomped. Dylan is just as forced and phony as he takes the prize. Zach Cherry's transition over the past 2 episodes, going from gung-ho refiner guy to grieving, distracted parent, has really been outstanding. Helly is picking up on Dylan's discomfort. She looks at him, trying to be supportive.
Open it.
Dylan may not want to share something so personal with the gang. He covers with some Dylan bravado, but it doesn't have the same ring of truth as it would have just a few days ago.
Yeah, I bet you'd like that, fuckers, but my prize, my eyes. So.
Milchick tells him maybe he should share his award with the gang.
Show them what you requested.
Mark agrees. Dylan grudgingly opens the box. We don't get a look, but the refiners are able to see his special award. After looking in the box, Herb silently gives Dylan a firm punch to the shoulder, a mark of brotherly solidarity. Mark has a wide-open smile and puts an arm around Dylan's shoulder. Helly is also giving him a supportive smile. Whatever it is, it's meaningful, it's moving, but it's still a mystery to us.
Okay, yeah. Let's switch up the vibe in here.
Milchick heads into the main room. The rest of the Macrodats remain rallied around Dylan for a few more moments. Okay. We cut to more fun with the lights. This time it's more of a lounge atmosphere than the dance party feel of the MDE. The lights are pulsing and sweeping the room with deep colors. It even looks like we might have some blacklight mixed in. It's the pre-Waffle Party egg bar, and we all know what everybody thinks of the egg bar, right?
Yeah, the egg bar is coveted as fuck.
The tune giving the egg bar that oh-so-hip sound is called Chinese Surfer. It was released in 2009 by the Los Angeles duo Kava Khan. Nels Truesdell and Bob Kress, along with a huge cast of studio musicians, create the Khan sound. What do they play? Well, the title of the album this song is taken from should give you an idea. It's called Tiki for the Atomic Age. We've got another Kava Khan tune coming up shortly. Helly is shocked at how good the offerings are on the egg bar. That's when Dylan gives her the egg bar lowdown.
Yeah, the egg bar is coveted as fuck.
Doesn't it seem like finding some baby goats suddenly made Helly this caring and compassionate person? She tells Dylan she should be the one to stay.
Don't you want to see your kid again?
Wow, Helly with the heart of gold. As noble as this may be, she would be even more of a liability in the security office than Dylan. Britt Lauer is 5'6". She'd be giving up 2 to 3 inches of reach versus Dylan. She'd never be able to do it. It's a good thing she doesn't talk him out of it here. Dylan doesn't think this will be his only chance to see his kid. He's looking at the bigger picture.
What we're doing tonight is just the first step.
Helly looks across the room at Mark. During this scene, Milchick was making the rounds with his camera, snapping pics of the assembled Macrodats. This is poking fun at something I'd like to mention. I've been to a lot of business mixers, after-hours meetings, that kind of thing. There's always a PR person for whoever's putting it on, running around with a camera. They take the exact kinds of shots Mark and Irv are posing for. You can be at the dullest, most mind-numbing event imaginable, but these still pictures they post in the local business newspaper make it look like everybody's having a blast. The tunes, pulsing lights, and fake smiles continue in MDR. There's a cut into Cobel's office. She must just be getting back from lunch. It's about 10 until 2, according to the clock we saw over Mark's shoulder just before they cut. Helly finished her file at 11:40. Cobel had that meeting with Mark to get the name for the Waffle Party, send him to wellness, and have a forced laugh about making quota. It must have made her late getting away for lunch. Milchick's down in MDR with the egg bar, so Cobel walks right on into her office. Natalie is waiting at Cobel's desk in a solid blue dress with her water droplet pin. If smug could be measured, Natalie would break the scale. She holds up 2 black and white prints. Both are of Helly struggling in the elevator during her suicide attempt. Before she speaks, Nat gives this great turn of her head and raise of the eyebrows.
Helly R. attempted suicide 3 weeks ago.
Cobel stands there like a stylishly dressed, gray-haired Terminator. She absorbs the blow, regenerates, and decides to go ahead and tell the truth.
Yes, she did.
Natalie's response is almost like she can't believe it's even true.
How could you not tell us?
Harmony's first concern is who ratted her out.
Did Milchick give you those?
My money's on Grainer. He seemed pretty shocked to find out she hadn't said anything to the board the other morning during their meeting. He saw the footage. It's how he knew to make that run through the hallways to save Helly. He'd know exactly where to go on the tapes to make some prints. I don't know if Milchick could be that mean, especially towards Cobel. They seem to have a work-wife, work-husband kind of relationship. I think Milchick respects Cobel too much to rat her out. I also think he kind of likes working for her. Natalie pushes for an answer as to how Cobel didn't say anything for 3 whole weeks.
Am I speaking with the board?
Natalie ignores the question. She says, we, I guess meaning the board, also know Harmony has been spending time at the home of Mark Scout's sister. So becoming the Hale's lactation consultant was not a Lumen assignment. That was Harmony freelancing on her own. Cobel's personal motives in all of this are still a huge question mark. Harmony stands silently, not denying it.
Right. It has been decided that you be suspended from your position effective immediately.
There's a pause with a reverse to Cobel. Her brain has locked up. She can't seem to understand the words coming out of Natalie's mouth. Her brows are knitted. Natalie boils it down for her, and I think she's enjoying herself just a little too much when she says,
"You are fired."
Cobel starts to speak, sputters, shakes her head, then utters the greatest Cobel line yet spoken in the entire series.
Oh, fuck off, Natalie!
It's not just the words, it's the way she delivers them. It's also what she's really wanted to say in every other Natalie meeting up to this point. Cobel sounds like she's on the verge of tears. She asks again, is the board even there? Natalie just stares her down, not answering. From the speaker set up on Cobel's desk, we finally hear an almost whispered,
Yes.
There are many commenters on Severance discussion threads who have said, hey, doesn't that sound a lot like James Egan? Well, yeah, it does. IMDb solved this mystery and nothing flat. Michael Cyberry, who plays James Egan in the final episode of the season, is credited as voice only in this episode. That's him. No mystery. We know for certain at least one of the members of the board. Quick theory to drop in here, and it's kind of a wild one. It says James is not only James Egan, he is actually maybe a couple of the Egans who have been CEO. The reanimation program they've been running has been able to store the consciousnesses of past CEOs going back to about the 1970s when Lumen first started working with this technology. This means they might have been able to store copies of the brains of Gerhardt, Pip, and Leonora. The theory says James had these other CEO brain files loaded into his head. He was then fitted with a special severance chip that allows him to switch to any one or even multiple of these other CEO personalities. When they are all accessed at once, they are referred to as the board. Unfortunately, hosting all of these personalities is physically taxing for James. He prefers to attend meetings via speaker so he can remain in bed on oxygen or whatever else it is he needs to keep his strength up so he can host all of these personalities at once. Maybe he also needs baby goat's blood or something. This theory also has offshoots into explaining the revolving. During the revolving, which James references in the final episode, this theory says all of the personalities in his head would be transferred to Helly, or whoever is next in line to be CEO. This transfer of personalities includes James' personality, which is why Lumen CEOs all seem to die in office. Their physical body may die, but their consciousness is transferred to the next CEO's brain. It's important to hold the revolving before the current CEO dies of natural causes, because if he dies without doing the transfer, they could lose the other CEO brain maps. Hey, it's a theory. Cobel slowly peers around Natalie so she can see the speaker. She realizes what she just said in front of James and whoever else might be at the other end of that call.
I'm sorry, that was rude.
She sits at her desk now talking directly to the speaker. Harmony says she can explain everything to the board tonight during their in-person meeting. Cut to Natalie, who is now a being made of pure smug.
The board has concluded the call.
Natalie turns on her heel and exits Cobel's office. The firing stands, and there will be no meeting tonight at the gala.
Fuck off, Natalie.
We cut back to the MDR area with a close-up on the portrait of Kier. Kier is a man who experimented with a lot of different facial hair options in his time. Here, he's sporting a wide mustache, clean-shaven chin, no sideburns, and short hair. Purple lights are pulsing over the canvas, and the song has changed. This new cut is also from Kava Khan's album, Tiki for the Atomic Age. This one is called Palace of the Tiger Women. Irv is standing in front of the Kier portrait, studying it. There are several cuts to him alone, looking at Kier. We can see he's holding a deviled egg in a napkin. Irv pulls the largest volume, the one on the bottom, out of the shelf designed for the handbook and appendices. He starts to flip through it, looking for a specific passage. I want to point out a little stagecraft here. We talked about the UUR and how Dan Erickson has actually written quite a few pages of it. When we see characters flip through Ricken's book, the pages of content just keep coming. Normally, you don't have that luxury when trying to present a book in a play or on camera. It's almost impossible to completely print a book to be used as a prop. Instead, it's pretty common to take an existing book that looks like what you want, change the cover graphics, the spine, maybe the title page, and voila, whatever the book was before, it's now a prop in your show. The book Irv is referencing as the handbook is actually some kind of a Bible study guide, or it might actually be a study Bible. The pages are gilt-edged, which anymore is rare for any book other than a Bible. In the first few pages Irv flips through, you can see references to topics like working through Philippians, the letters of Paul, and references are made to both Jesus Christ and Elijah. These pages also have unique layouts. It's not until the last double-page spread Irv turns to where we find the words of Kier. This double-page spread is laid out differently than the others he'd flipped by. It's headed Labor, Goodliness, and Love, Heart of the Workforce. This is a very full couple of pages, and they do get some great shots of all the text. The visible portions of these pages have been transcribed on the Severance Wiki. These passages contain quite a bit of info about Kier's early work life. This one glimpse of the handbook is where we've gotten the bulk of biographical information we know about Kier Egan. Something to keep in mind, this was written by Kier. We've already talked about how the Ether Factory story seems to be a fabrication. It's pretty clear Kier doesn't have any idea how ether is made. So even though this seems to be biographical, it might be augmented. According to these pages, Kier stuffed cushions for a furniture manufacturer when he was 12 years old. He tells stories of tremendous abuse, how he bonded with the other workers, of tricking his boss, and a 7-mile walk to get back home every night. He also mentions his bout with consumption, his ease of bruising, and the, quote, very close biological relationship of his parents in these passages. If you get a chance, you really should check out the Severance Wiki and read the entire text of these pages. I'm guessing this would also be the work of Dan Erickson as scribe. There's a ton of great Kier information just in these 2 pages, but there's also some really funny stuff. One of my favorite passages comes from a section where Kier is discussing what happens if you have too much of any one temper. Quote, in the man with too much frolic, this may lead to unhealthy lifestyle motions, such as becoming an actor or a flautist, or the adoption of an irresponsible hairstyle. The overarching theme of most of Kier's stories is proving how the love of a corporation for its employees and the love returned by the employees through their work is far stronger than any romantic love ever could be. He says Romeo and Juliet never experienced as pure a love as the love Shakespeare would most certainly have had with his publishers. Word of Kier. Irv flips through the handbook until he finds the passage he wants.
And thou in each swing of your axe or swipe of your pen the sum of your affections, that through me they may be purified and returned.
The camera is looking at Irv from Kier's point of view.
No higher purpose may be found than this, nor any higher love.
Since in the last couple of weeks Irv has found, and now thanks to Lumen, lost romantic love, he may be questioning this corporate love thing as being something better. Irv holds eye contact with the painting. As he does, he slides the napkin holding his deviled egg over into the gutter of the open handbook. Kier's blue eyes are piercing as they continue to cut back to the painting. There's a close-up on the egg sitting in the book when Irv slams it shut. The egg completely disappears. Look at the edge of the book after he closes it. You can see the break in the gilt edges of the pages where the additional pages have been inserted. I'm fascinated by this egg slamming move. Would a deviled egg be completely consumed by a book like that? I propose an outie experiment, refiners. Try this move. See if it works. Get a deviled egg and a book, preferably a book other than a Bible, and video yourself slamming the egg between 2 pages. Maybe get an old catalog, like a Granger catalog or a Uline catalog. Don't ruin a good book. I think at least some of the egg and filling would shoot out of the edges. I don't think the entire egg would be consumed by the book, but I'm not sure. We need further research. Please post any videos of you testing the egg slam theory to the Severed Facebook page. This is mysterious and important work, refiners. Don't get caught, and don't do anything illegal. There's a long hold on Irv's face. He looks very satisfied after this act of rebellion. That egg is going to start stinking in there, and it won't take long. Is there a Lumen fascination with eggs? Or possibly a Severance fascination with eggs? It kind of seems like it. Kier Egan's favorite breakfast is 3 raw eggs and milk. We had those runny, gross-looking eggs on O&D's Egg Drop Challenge tray. The egg bar is, of course, well, you know. So what's up with the eggs? According to a trivia item on the Severance Wiki, director Ben Stiller abhors, that's the word they used, abhors eggs. I think all the eggs in these scenes is purely Dan messing with Ben. Oh, yeah, buddy, eggs are really important to the story. You're going to want to have a lot of them in this scene. Ben Stiller did mention in a Twitter open forum the egg bar was, quote, necessary for the story. Well, maybe just so Irv has one to squish. I'm curious to see if eggs really do have some connection with the bigger picture, or if this is all just some elaborate prank on Ben.
I've ordered the pre-Waffle Party egg bar social for everyone.
Cut to Helly seated in the kitchenette. This entire scene is bathed in pink light. Doesn't it seem like everything is getting weird in the later episodes? I love it. This is a shot Jessica Lee Gagne pushed hard for. She really wanted the pink lighting because this is a love scene. It's the first time Mark and Helly catch up with the rest of us and start to understand this might be more than a work thing. Mark enters.
I figured it out. The goats lay the eggs.
Oh my God, you got it.
Mark has a seat. Helly asks if he's scared about tonight. He says he's afraid of getting caught.
They left us unattended and thought we'd be too dumb to notice. They won't see this coming.
I love the thought every time Helly says they, she's referring to the company her dad/grandpa currently runs, and she's probably in line to run. It's funny to see how anti-Egan her innie is when she's actually an Egan. So what's the worst that could happen?
Or we won't wake up.
Well, yeah, there is that. They could be going to all this trouble, taking all this risk, and it just won't work. When has anyone ever run through the steps of a computer program and it worked perfectly the first time you did it? Through the door, we can see Dylan hitting up the egg bar one more time. He gives Mark and Helly a look.
We're all assholes out there.
Well, that's a given for me.
Helly has no love for her outie, the woman who said she's not a person. Mark says he hopes it turns out he has things he cares about on the outside.
Like, for real.
If he doesn't, it means his whole life must be defined by his work. This is getting a bit sappy.
You pretended to care about me pretty well.
Aw, love is blooming in MDR and everything is pink.
You're easy to pretend to care about.
I say again, aw. You may be thinking, finally, but Dan Erickson said it would have been too easy to just put the pretty people together. As viewers, we kind of knew from the first episode when we saw Mark and Helly in the hallways, these two would make a great couple. Dan resisted pushing them together right off. It was too easy, and as I think one reviewer said, too HBO Max. Dan said he wanted them to really earn this relationship. I think suffering through a suicide attempt, finding the baby goats, and multiple visits to the break room means they've paid their dues. They earned the relationship. A side note about being married and severed. Alexa brought up the you could have a girlfriend at work thing all the way back during their first date when she was still speaking to him. Helly's going to wonder if she and Mark are married just before they get on the elevator. We've met Dylan's son, so there's a high probability he's married. We know Mark's status as widower/dating, but we don't know anything about Helly's outie marital status for certain. This does raise a question for me. How do they hide the ring mark? Do married severed workers have to give up wearing a wedding ring? I could see taking my ring off every morning before I got on the elevator and leaving it in my locker. So down on the severed floor, I wouldn't have a ring as an indicator, but I would definitely have a ring mark on my finger. It would be like a big flashing sign. I'm married as an outie. I know my dad gained weight to the point he couldn't even take his ring off. I can still take mine off, but I've never had it off long enough for the ring mark to fade. I have no idea how long it might take for it to go away. I'd love to see the Lumen policy on wedding rings for severed workers. You know they've got one. Back in the kitchenette, there are long, lingering looks through the pink lighting. In the main room, we hear an electronic phone beep, then almost instantly the white lights come on. Pink lovey-dovey session is over.
Okay, refiners.
Milchick's gotten word about Cobel's firing.
I need to see about a management issue and this party is over.
Milchick looks rattled. Who do you think called him here? Natalie?
I'll leave the food.
Irv thanks him. Seth says he'll be back to escort Dylan to perpetuity shortly. He then practically sprints out of the MDR area. The four Macrodats are left alone. They look at each other in a somewhat eerie silence. Cut to a high-angled shot of the halls. Seth Milchick's perfectly coiffed head appears lower center in the shot. Following him is Harmony Cobel. Seth is carrying the official shorthand TV prop for Fired, a file box filled with the Firee's stuff. Harmony is following along behind. As Seth turns, we can see Harmony might have the head of Cure in a jar in her box of stuff.
Keycard.
She takes it out with a sneer. They trade. He takes the card, she takes the box of stuff. And here's that phrase again.
On you go, then.
Milchick is cold. No handshakes or hugs will be offered here. Cobel turns on her heel and strides for the barrier door. Wow, they really humiliate you when you get fired on the severed floor. Harmony doesn't even get to ride the elevator for a final time. Her keycard was surrendered, and she's going to have to walk up 13 flights to get to the ground level. Ouch. There's a tiny little detail through the doorway. I did like this. When Cobel opens the door to the fire stairs, the stairwell above and to the right is lit, and we can see the steps heading out. There are stairs to the left, but the stairwell that would lead down is pitch black. The door slams behind Cobel. Our view looking onto the severed floor is through the tempered glass window, the one Helly broke out just a couple of weeks ago. We can see Seth turn on his heel and head down the hall. Nothing can interfere with the ongoing business of the severed floor, and Seth Milchick now seems to be running everything on his own. We cut into the MDR storeroom. Mark's going over the details of the plan with Dylan.
Don't mess with any other departments. It's just us three. I know.
Dylan's a prankster, but I don't see him randomly waking up people he doesn't know. Helly reminds him about it needing 2 people. They don't need to worry. Dylan's got this.
Can I have the stuff, please?
Mark hands over the black all-access keycard. Helly hands over the quick start page for the OTC. Mark is pointing out how they need to be ready for anything when they wake up.
Now, look, it's likely we'll all wake up around people. Could be driving or skiing, whatever we do up there. So be ready for anything as you go up the elevator, okay?
They have no idea how much time they'll have once the switches are thrown. Mark says to find someone you think you can trust and tell them everything. Helly says to avoid being distracted by digging into your outie lives.
The mission is the priority.
Irving, with what I believe is a flash of his military service peeking through. There's a pause. Mark turns to his desk.
I probably should have told you guys.
He pulls out the copy of the UUR he has hidden in his file folders. Mark stammers a bit as he turns to a particular page.
Our job is to taste free air. Your so-called boss may own the clock that taunts you from the wall, but my friends, the hour is yours.
Dylan finished the passage, and they all look in his direction.
Page 197 slabs.
The music builds. We get a down-angle shot looking at the rebels gathered in the storeroom. This group is either about to shake Lumen to its core, or they'll never wake up here together ever again.
Our job is to taste free air.
Let's talk Rickon for just a second. Many fans believe Rickon is somehow related to Kier. His eyebrows, his writing style, his ability to win over followers all echo the great and powerful Kier. Sure, Rickon's a goofball, no question there, but he does have the power to win over the weak, the uninformed, the weird, so probably about 75% of the world's population. Rickon's message is most definitely anti-Kier and pretty rebellious, but many believe it will somehow be revealed he is a direct descendant. We even have the tantalizing bit of an anagram in his name. If you spell Rickon with an E the way it's spelled on the book cover, his first name contains the letters K-I-E-R. If there is some connection between Rickon and the founder, this would also explain Harmony's interest in the new baby Eleanor. We cut to a close-up of a hand inserting a key card. It's Irv. He's about to get on the elevator.
Okay, kids. Let's find out what's for dinner.
This was the first thing we ever heard Irv say all the way back in episode 1.
Hi, kids. What's for dinner?
Dylan said it was agreed. They all hated it as a greeting.
God damn it, Irv. We warned you.
About the greeting? You were kidding.
No, we sincerely hate it. How many reasons did we come up with?
8.
8 reasons. Chief among them, the latent condescension.
And it's confusing. Like, did the kids make you dinner in this scenario? Or?
Yeah, what kind of a shit dad are you?
No wonder. It's a cruel joke for an innie. Innies don't get dinner. Their perception stops before they ever know what's for dinner. Finally, if these guys can successfully activate the OTC, the innies are going to find out the answer to Herb's question. Herb's POV reveals Mark and Helly waiting for their rides to the top. As the doors close, we can see it's 5:04 p.m. Mark and Helly are standing side by side, waiting on the elevator to return after dropping off Herb.
You think we're about to meet our spouses?
They turn to face each other.
Maybe.
Maybe it's each other.
No, I don't think so. They do try to keep them separated in the outie world. It's why we stagger the exits. Still, it's fun to think about.
That'd be a hoot.
They do a fun little improv about squabbling over cutting coupons. The electricity is palpable. Mark swallows hard. Helly nods a bit, moves towards Mark, then takes off her lanyard and hops on the elevator. Huh? That had to be the spot for a kiss. Helly gets on the elevator, turns, the bell dings, and the doors start to close. Helly lunges with her arm through the doors. The safety sensors cause them to open, and she presses herself up against Mark. Whoa. Okay, here's the kiss. Guys, remember the mission.
In case we don't come back. I don't know, in case we do.
Right.
Helly gets back on the elevator.
Good luck out there, boss.
Mark is left a bit breathless waiting in the elevator reception area. He turns to scan the green leather chairs and low table. Somehow, it's still 5:04 p.m. They really should be staggering these exits by at least 5 minutes. The music builds, Mark inserts his keycard, and gets on the up elevator for what might be the last time. We cut to a close-up of Dylan. He's going through the one-word memory list for the OTC procedure.
Type, trackball, type, flip, trackball, enter, shift.
The shot scans down over the single quick start page with the short form instructions. We then cut to the new electronic doors opening.
Are you ready, Dylan G?
The MDR area is empty.
Dylan G?
Dylan calls from the bathroom. He says he'll be out in a minute. Dylan refolds the one-sheet guide and takes a moment to collect himself. Outie Mark is walking up the stairs and out of Lumen. As he heads down the front steps, a group of guys in blue jumpsuits are working. Another man wearing a suit and holding a clipboard seems to be directing the activity. New signage is being hung at the top of the main steps, and a blue carpet is being rolled out. The new signage with blue backlighting says, "Welcome, friends of Lumen. Tonight is the Big Egan Family Gala." We cut away from Mark to an insane hallway shot. The camera is mounted within a foot of the ceiling. We are looking way into the distance. Dylan and Seth are making their way towards the camera. Dylan is walking one step back and to the right of Milchick. He's carrying his new award in front of him with both hands. The shot reverses to reveal the entrance to the Wing of Perpetuity. The two pass by James, go through the Hall of CEOs, and directly to the recreated House of Kier. Seth opens the door to the Kier display, tells Dylan,
"Enjoy," and
leaves. Dylan is on his own, crossing the front lawn and entering the large home. The lights are dimmed in the front yard. Buckle up, refiners. It's time for the Waffle Party. Inside the House of Kier, Dylan heads to a table set up in the founder's bedroom. On it is a red plate stacked with 3 good-looking waffles. Dylan sits and grabs the metal pitcher of syrup. He knows what he's doing at a waffle party. We get a close-up as he covers the waffles. A long shot reveals the setup of Dylan's party. The table is in the middle of a black and white checked carpet. The curtain behind him is covering the entrance into the room. 4 small electric bulbs are flanking Dylan, 2 on each side. A white marble bust of Kier is sitting on a table, looking at Dylan from his left. Dylan begins to eat. There is a swell in the music and a transition to harmony in her car? Tell the truth, refiners. How many of you were totally bummed the first time you saw this episode? You thought, what the heck? That's it? The waffle party is just a plate of waffles you eat in the founder's house? You might have been mad, but there's no way you were as mad as Harmony is about this whole firing thing. Caution, refiners. Harmony is mad.
Fuck her goddamn soul forever into hell.
Harmony should probably not be behind the wheel right now.
Fuck her in her fucking face.
Yeah, she's a danger to herself and others. The White Rabbit is careening along the highway.
Fuck her goddamn soul.
Although I'm betting the expletives continue, we hear one final caterwaul from Ms. Cobel as the White Rabbit speeds off into the night. We cut back to the plate of waffles, now almost gone. So there is more to this waffle party thing. As Dylan finishes the last couple of bites, he reveals a message printed on the bottom of the plate. It says in perfect formal Kier speak, "Go now to the founder's bed." In his set decor interview, Andrew Baseman talked about the preparation that went into this scene. They had to find just the right table of the period. He said there was a bunch of research and discovery involved there. The plate had to be period, but it also had to be printed with the message. Whatever they used to do the printing had to be non-toxic, but also permanent, because Zach Cherry was really going to be eating off it. Could the printing withstand maple syrup and a fork? It had to be tested. After getting to the message, Dylan looks up. We realize his seat is looking at the foot of Kier's bed. There is a creepy, detailed papier-mâché mask of Kier sitting on the bed looking back at Dylan. The mask is a long beard, crazy hair, full mustache, slightly balding version of Kier. The Kier in the marble bust watching Dylan eat is goateed Kier with longish hair, but much neater than the mask. The mask might be a version of Kier from later in his life. Dylan considers the head in the bed for several moments. He finishes up his milk, in a cut glass goblet no less, and grabs his boxed award. A close-up of Dylan grabbing the Kier mask reveals it's pockmarked and old-looking. Sitting on the bed under the mask is a real-life cat-o'-nine-tails whip. Each tail has one of the 9 principal words printed on it, just like the one we saw in the painting Bert hung in Wellness. There's a transition to black, then a lifting camera move from the foot of the bed. This is not Dylan's first waffle party. He knew what to do. Dylan is now seated in the founder's bed. He's leaned up against the headboard facing the foot and wearing the very weird papier-mâché mask of Kier. He's still holding his award in his lap. The music begins. This cut is an original composition by music director Theodore Shapiro. It's called The Four Tempers. Woven into it is an echo of the Kier anthem we heard Harmony sing in the MDR area. A figure enters through the curtain at the other end of the room. The oversized mask head is of the jester. This is the embodiment of the temper frolic. Ben Stiller said they had a very talented sculptor on staff who handled the Kier and Four Tempers masks. The body of this jester is a lithe young woman. She's wearing a skin-tight red jumpsuit and high heels. The dance is pretty suggestive. The huge papier-mâché head is just weird. The bride is next to enter through the curtain. Played by another well-built young woman, this is the embodiment of woe. She's wearing a large papier-mâché head under a white veil. The mouth is open and the eyebrows are arched. She is distressed, woeful. The outfit the bride is wearing is a white lingerie set, a pointed bra with garter belt, high-cut panties, and garters holding up thigh-high white stockings. She's also wearing white heels and dancing suggestively. Next is Dread, embodied by the old woman. The only thing old about this woman is the gray-haired papier-mâché mask she's wearing. Dread is another hot young thing who is very flexible. She throws a leg straight up in the air during her dance. The other two are gyrating behind her. If you haven't noticed the pattern, Dread is also wearing some sexy lingerie. Gloves come up above her elbow. Her long legs are clad in black stockings with a garter belt, and of course, she's also wearing high heels. This sexy waffle party dance is being intercut with scenes of Cobel's continued freakout. She recklessly parks the rabbit in her driveway and slams the door to her apartment. As Cobel slams herself up against the walls of a hallway, we see the final member of the Waffle Party dance team appear. A muscular young man wearing a papier-mâché ram or goat head has joined the trio of ladies. He is the embodiment of malice. We keep cutting back to Harmony's freakout. She goes downstairs to rip the principal banners off the walls. She tears them down, then starts on the shrine. She's wailing as she smashes her altar to Kier. There are